We are pleased to welcome political strategist Thomas Borwick back for another Concord and Victory interview. Last time, our discussion explored how data, technology, and strategy shape modern elections, drawing on Thomas's experience with Vote Leave and his political work and consultancy. Today, we turn to a different angle, how one becomes a member of parliament, what the role realistically involves, and the responsibilities carried by those who represent the public in Westminster. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us again. For our first question, for young people who aspire to sit in Parliament one day, what is the first practical step they should take?
Getting involved in politics is incredibly important. Thank you very much, Tia, Amelia, and James, for interviewing me. Thank you very much for Gordon for setting it all up. Joining politics is tough. One of those great phrases is politics is extraordinarily hard to enter and even harder to leave. So the top bit of advice is pick your timing and get involved in something. Whether or not you have a view on the local high street, road, even something at school. You all have voices, use them, and the right time has to be a really personal decision. Many people enter politics far too early or far too late, and it's about engaging with your family, your where you want to be, and your 5-10 year plan at that earliest stage to work out how to enter Parliament or politics. Importantly, a lot of what I think we're going to discuss is that MP route, but many people get involved in as school governors, hospital governors, chairs, trustees of different charities and things like this. I know we're going to mostly talk about the MP route, but really importantly, there's thousands of other ways to get into second line politics in different ways.
Thank you. So in your view, which matters more at the beginning? Party affiliation, local involvement, or personal credibility?
So they probably all matter a lot and depends very much at that cycle and process. If you want to be a Green member of Parliament, statistically, you're probably not going to be successful in certain parts of the country over other parts of the country. And therefore, you need to be conscious of the voter groups and therefore your belief systems and how they relate to that. Likewise, we talked about the red wall and blue wall, that group of northern Conservative seats that have huge Brexit contingent voters in previous conversations. If you are really opposed to Brexit, those kind of voters are not your target voting group and not a place you would stand. So very much coming to that ability to understand who one is as a person and that personal integrity will very much coalesce those different points. Parties will help you because it's really tough for independents to be successful. I understand that 2019 general elections, circa 14 or 17, depending how you count, people stood against their party in various different guises. I'm sure those with better understanding will know the exact numbers. And my understanding is that none of them were successful in that process. One or two might be, depending how you count. But in essence, standing against your party is really, really hard as well. I've often had chats with individual MPs that say they got onto the ballot 6-8 weeks before the general election campaign. They probably spoke to maybe 1,000, 3,000 people, but it was the party that carried them over the line. Likewise, I speak to people that say they were doing really well, they were really, really good, but the party made some unfortunate decisions, and that's why they lost their seat.
And how does the party leadership decide who's running in what seat?
So all parties have slightly different processes. In the United Kingdom, we usually have a target set of seats for any political party. You then have a marginal set of seats, and then you have a group that are perhaps no-hoper or paper candidates. So those safe seats, the seats that 8 or 9 elections out of 10 you're going to win, will be very much focused or given to the people that they hope to be successful for broader political purposes. The marginal people, the marginal seats for any political party, they want to find the group of people that campaign hard and a group of people that actually get out on the door and knock and do all those canvassing and local activities. And that third group of seats, what are often called paper candidate or no-hoper seats, it's very much local people putting local people up. Alternatively, people going through that process of doing one for experience and then hoping for a better seat next time. There's a really old-fashioned concept that many political parties try and encourage people to do one no-hoping or marginal seat before they get a safe seat. That's considered really unpopular by the younger generation, to say why should they give up a job, a life process for arguably maybe 2 years or at least 12 months to go and work on a seat that they have no hope of winning.
In your view, does the current first-past-the-post system incentivize moderation or entrench polarization among prospective MPs?
Can you do both? So, and what do I mean by that? If you have very low turnouts, if people are a little bit ambivalent about the political system, then you're more likely for fringe or marginal candidates to occur. Under a first-past-the system, if everyone is about okay, then turnout won't really be high, and therefore slightly fringe views will be more successful. You might see certain by-elections and local elections, particularly council processes, when barely 14% of the total electorate, 5,000 to 15,000 votes at the MP level would be the lowest level usually to get MPs in. Often it's about 23 to 25,000 to comfortably get people in. But very few MPs ever get more than 50% of their electorate. Let's just wind back a little bit talking about the selectorate and the electorate. What do I mean by the word selectorate? There's often a little process of getting that seat. And the harder you work to get that seat, probably the easier the election campaign is. Likewise, if it's very easy to run for that party in that seat, it's probably a much harder campaign to actually win in the election. So first past the post is really, really helpful if you have a big group of people that support you, or if you're a little bit fringe, you want a whole load of people to be very ambivalent, and you can win on a group of people that's slightly marginalized.
Thank you. So how important would you say fundraising is, and how can new candidates approach it ethically and effectively?
So fundraising in the United Kingdom is very regulated for the expenditure of that money and then who is able to donate. So in the United Kingdom, you're probably raising about 23 to 27,000 pounds for that political campaign. It's about 7, 8 or 9 pence a voter, depending on where you're standing and what you're doing. So your individual expenditure for that campaign is really, really closely controlled. Most candidates find it relatively straightforward to raise at least 5 to 10,000 pounds, but not many spend the full 23 or 29,000, again, slightly depending on different ways of counting for that process. How do you do it ethically? Well, in the United Kingdom, we have a declaration process so that donors above £500 are recorded and then put onto the electoral register. And it's then about all of us and the world to then go, hey, look at these people donating to these candidates, what's happening there? Now, if you were given a pot of money, is that likely to influence you one way or another? Ultimately, the short answer is probably. For example, the trade unions are one of the largest funders of many candidates. They will have groups of candidates that they support and fundraise. As part of that, they would hope to have an opportunity to convince and support them in the various causes and support networks that they need.
And do you think social media has made the importance of money less so or more so?
If you are lacking something, then a little bit of money is very helpful to do whatever that may be. If you have a little bit of charisma, if you have a little bit of policy, a little bit of image, a little bit of a good party, you're probably okay on most things. Social media allows, particularly if we look at something like the New York election race again, it enables you to jump over some of those things you may not have. Social media might propel you to a larger group of electorate that might be slightly harder for that traditional process. In the United Kingdom, we're very stratified across the 650 constituencies we have. Typically, it's about 75,000 voters per constituency. But social media in some areas is really helpful, but it's really hard to geolocate or geofocus that campaign, particularly if you're trying to do something much more viral. By definition, if you're trying to find 500,000 people to care about your campaign, whatever it may be, that means you're trying to reach people outside of your individual constituency.
What does the rhythm of daily parliamentary life look like behind the scenes, beyond what the public sees in PMQs and the chamber, and how can they balance constituency work with legislative responsibilities?
That's really, really difficult because there's a heck of a difference between a campaigner and a legislator. Now, the bill and the process of reviewing legislation, or bills and acts as they go through Parliament, is a huge, huge part that must be done by a group of people that are really focused. At the committee report stage, you might be looking at bills on a line-by-line process to fight for the different things that are in that piece of legislation. As part of that process, attention to detail, close reading, to be analytical is really helpful. As part of the campaign process, however, you might want to be a big team player, very charismatic and big picture idea. Very quickly, we can see the two create different groups of people that are perhaps not best suited to both tasks. So typically, the House of Commons sometimes may not start till 11, 12, or even 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and may go on to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night. You're probably in Parliament Monday by about 2 o'clock, all the way through to about Wednesday afternoon or Thursday. If you're in a marginal constituency, you might have skipped off on a Thursday to be back in your constituency. But typically, Monday to Thursday, you'd be in Westminster. And then Friday, Saturday, and perhaps Sunday, you'd be in the constituency. Most people describe the job as very full on. What do they mean? Constituents believe they have a right, or often an expectation, that they can always contact the Member of Parliament. And that's really tough for some members of Parliament to cope with. In a central London constituency, you might have between 3,000 to 5,000 residents contact you each year on the issues that matter to you. But in a more regional seat, that number could be a couple of hundred each year, and therefore significantly easier to cope with and manage. So different constituencies have a different temporal rhythm that make it harder to do. The London seats probably have it slightly easier because they can then balance some of their family or home obligations than perhaps the regional seats where you're leaving your family on perhaps very early on a Monday morning and not back till Thursday evening. At this stage, I think it's really important to talk about family, and many people, depending on the stage of life they're at, don't have enough conversations with spouses, partners, and kids. Some of you watching this might even have parents who have entered politics, and you've gone, if I had a choice, I really wish they wouldn't be there. But either way, they probably are there in whatever way. You are very quickly, in the current society, expected as a family to be doing something to not discredit or be difficult to that family member in. And that's a huge obligation for children. You might have seen an increase of MPs with pets and dogs. Quickly, dogs and cats are becoming proxies for their children. Pets at polling station has been a good way for MPs to use it as a proxy for their family members, because they're very reluctant or unkeen for any political exposure of their children.
Thank you. So, in your view, what role does networking within a political party play?
Hugely important, not just when you're in, but also getting your seat. So there's a group of assessors for most political parties that will do your interviews and understanding, but it's about understanding timeline and process. So there'll be certain seats that will be up in certain orders based on who's going to retire, who may stop running as a candidate for whatever reason. And it's about understanding those opportunities, getting those lucky breaks in life where a seat turns vacant or that you are on that shortlist. That's often the biggest hurdle of finding the right seat to stand. When you then are selected by your party, it's about finding the team and group of people that then help you in that election campaign. Typically, about 200 people can canvass about 30,000 people in about 2 months. So you don't need a huge number of volunteers, and many people do it with significantly fewer volunteers than that. 30 volunteers is considered good in most constituencies. But it's about then being successful in Parliament, getting on the right committees and going up the parliamentary process. So networking is always important, but also not just for political careers.
Drawing on you talking a lot about different balances MPs have to make earlier, going into, in a few years' time, it looks like the general election is going to see a lot more marginal seats than safe seats. Do you think this will lead big, well-known MPs to start focusing more on local issues to secure their own seats?
All politics is local is a well-used and very common phrase, and that if you're not in the game, you can't be in Parliament. If you lose your seat, that's a really, really big problem. Is the country getting more marginal? Hard to tell. If you look at something like the 2017 election, my understanding here is that the overseas voters, a group of people now have lifetime votes, but not at the time. They could vote for the 10 years after they left the country. If they all voted in the same way, they would have changed the results of that election. So we've had very marginal results through time, and particularly in the last 3 to 5 general elections. You don't need many people. You just need the right 50,000 people in the marginal seats to really make a difference. There is still the oddity that if 2 people get the same result, then it's the shortest straw, and the person with the longest straw is the person that gets that seat. So there are some really, really close elections that occur, and many elections occur with less than 10% difference in the 2 voter group numbers.
If you could reshape one aspect of UK political culture to encourage new MP candidates, what would it be?
If you had a proper process with maternity leave, if you had a proper process with working out the cycle of people going through Parliament and able to then balance family, maternity and paternity leave, I think you could then start to see a younger generation coming that were perhaps a bit more balanced with the other activities they do. I think as a second one, if I may have, it would be about encouraging people to have done something in some way, but also then having that sort of integrity and honesty about what it was. And certainly some people could criticize how someone like the current Chancellor of the Exchequer has framed her business career. It is really important to be beyond reproach with what you have done, but also to be clear and transparent about that job and activity. That doesn't mean every decision you have to do has to be politically aware. You certainly can have fun and should have fun, but I would combine that with something about paternity and maternity leave to really make sure that we looked at how you could balance the other things apart from Parliament. The Swiss, for example, Parliament is a non-full-time job, and therefore you are expected to have other things that you do both for your income or your process. And then a really cheeky third, just to be problematic, is that I would then pay everyone that was an MP £1 million. I'd say no expenses, no this, no that. But much like the Singapore model, if we paid everyone really properly for the role, we might have a slightly different caliber of candidates, and we might remove some of the donation and issues relating to fundraising if we properly made sure that the parliamentary processing campaign was regulated better, but also that we dipped into the public purse and paid people, because we might have a slightly better caliber of candidate too. And what changes would you all make? Come on, quickly.
What changes would I make?
Yeah.
I honestly think that I would change the first past the post system, because it's really unproportional. And I don't think it represents, like, it doesn't give minorities an opportunity to shine like the Lib Dems. It's mainly just two powerful parties like the Conservatives and Labour just fighting against each other. And I feel like I would give other parties a chance to shine if I could change one thing.
Emilia?
Maybe some, like, this is just maybe some regulation on the whips, because sometimes I get, like, they do have to ensure party discipline. I think so far, still today, there are some that go a bit too far, and it can be quite invasive just to, like, ensure. Like, I think it should be more regulated the way they put discipline onto MPs. Yeah.
I don't.
Go on.
If I may, I don't think it was as bad as it used to be.
No, definitely not. Like, obviously, there's been some changes, I agree, but maybe still to be regulated a bit. Yeah.
And this is a big problem about whether or not a party could say, thank you very much, but you no longer have the right to be our candidate. Many political parties would love to get rid of some of their candidates for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Perhaps they have changed the policies or procedures that they believe, or the party has changed, and the people that were in 1 year aren't the right people now. It's a two-way street. It's probably quite tough.
Yeah.
James?
I'd probably echo your idea of paying politicians better, but getting rid of expenses and donations. That'd probably be my biggest change. Maybe the toxic culture that we've seen come out in things like the COVID report at 10 Downing Street in Westminster. I think that should also be addressed.
Yeah, that negativity and aggression highlighted in the COVID report is clearly a barrier to good decision making.
Yeah.
So my next question was, what do you consider the most underestimated challenge of entering political office?
Leaving it. Discussing with your family and all of that stuff is really, really important. When entering politics, really, really make sure you've had conversations with 5-10 people that have said, don't do it. Anyone watching this to say, I want to be a member of parliament, stop. Tear up that piece of paper, look at 3 other jobs and decide why they are going to be better, and then go and do them for a little bit. If not, and if you've still got the passion, then go and do politics. It should not be the first thing that many people do. But leaving it is really, really difficult. So there are opportune and non-opportune times to leave Parliament. Many people leave at general elections, for example, but most political careers don't end in success. Most political careers end in failure, and often not of your own timing. So really working out what the end looks like, and there's quite a few people that just want to fight one more campaign and just want to be one more term, and perhaps that cycle or throughput would be very helpful to have.
So you've addressed there in a way career politicians who haven't experienced real life. Why do you think we're seeing such young politicians like, I think is it a 22-year-old Sam Carling for Labour, come into politics when it seems so unattractive, low paid, toxic, and full on? Why is that?
It's not very low paid for someone that is under the age of 35. Typically, a person under the age of 35 earning 100k, expense budget of 250k, and to speak, that's not a low paid job by any measure.
Yeah.
There's that oddity that circa a third of seats in this country, you will make 1.5 times the average income in that seat by being a member of parliament. So it's a pay rise for certain areas and for certain people to be in parliament. But loosely, many people would argue they're not paid enough for the activities and tasks that you'd want that person to do. Why do people do it? Because they want change. Wanting to be wanted is fabulous fun. It is really, really important for a lot of people to try and change the world that they're in. And people want to join politics because they want to argue and have an output and decision that makes this country better. And I think we should always support, applaud and congratulate anyone that is brave enough to stand for whatever their view is, regardless of their age. Do I think young people are perhaps at a disadvantage for some issues? Some will be, yes, both in terms of maturity, life experience and expectation, but also because for a lot of people, they never have a good second career. And what is really tough for some people that entered politics a little bit early is they never have that next group of activities or things that they peak. And peaking too soon is really tough for a lot of people.
Would you say authenticity has become more valuable in the modern electorate?
Authenticity is really, really helpful. More valuable compared to what is probably a slightly difficult counter-response here. But it is certainly really helpful to have some authenticity. Too much is probably a problem too.
How come, just as a question, you've never yourself wanted to run for office?
I think it's really important in life to let those people that want to focus on being the front of house people to be front of house. I am very happy not to be front of house. For me, the economics don't work, the lifestyle doesn't work, and then the career progress, I also think would be really tough because for the first 3 to 5 years, many people are just backbench whip fodder. It is really, really difficult at that beginning process to make that political journey. And then the other one that I'd also bring up is it's tough in London in certain seats in certain areas. So again, it depends with where you want to be and your ability to move and travel. But I would argue everyone listening to this would do really well if you were gently keen to be in politics, is to really look at the economics, the lifestyle, the setup, what you want to achieve and that pathway, because those might be good reasons you decide to think again, but also might be great reasons you want to stand.
And touching on most MPs just becoming fodder for the whips on the backbenchers, how is it you poise yourself as an MP to climb up the ladder through the select committees, maybe gain a junior ministerial role? How do you get up there?
Statistically, supporting someone in the previous leadership campaign is highly correlated with which ministerial position you get. And let's leave that aside for the moment because you might not have the opportunity to support the right candidate and all of that stuff. But if you really want to jump up somewhere that you perhaps wouldn't have normally got, to be backing the right candidate early enough is really correlated with success in that process. But the average member of Parliament backbencher is trying to do a good job in the eyes of the party machinery. So what are you saying, what are you doing, and what are you doing for media appearances locally? Supporting fundraising efforts, supporting the broader causes or activities that the party has, and then being present and an active voice. Some people might try and also be not too replaceable. If you are really the best at doing final research of defence legislation, you might find yourself a little bit pigeonholed in that process, and therefore you want to be moderately good at doing whatever piece of legislation it is, but not so much that you're just stuck in one department or process. Then you're going to want to do a lot of networking and friend finding to try and find the cohort of people that are going to be helping you in some way. As one faction within your party does slightly better than another, you'll want to approach that faction and be the group of people and activities that are motivated to really find a team that helps you up that parliamentary process. For us, I'd encourage people to also join all-party parliamentary group, speak in 10-minute bill motions, backbench business committees. And there's hundreds and hundreds of things that a firm like ourselves helps people get engaged with and talk about, because it really matters for the individual MP to actually have their voice and causes that they care for.
Do you guys have any more questions? Well, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you, Emilia. Thank you, James.